Every shot you're about to see was filmed using one of the DJI Neo 2's intelligent flight modes, and over the last few months I have flown every single one of them. Now, some of them have become my favourites, others I hardly ever use, and a couple have genuinely surprised me. So hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Well, if it's your first time here, my name's Andrew, and if it's not your first time here, well, you know it's still Andrew. So today I'm going to be looking at every intelligent flight mode on the DJI Neo 2, but instead of reading through the manual or DJI's marketing, I'm going to show you exactly how I use them during a normal day out flying. Now, some of the modes I use on almost every flight, and others only really come out when the location is right. So rather than just working through a menu, I'm going to show you my normal workflow from arriving at location right the way through to packing the drone away. So for most flights, I usually record in 4K at 30 frames a second, and that gives me plenty of detail. And it's also perfect if I'm uploading straight to YouTube. If I know that I want to do slow motion later, then I will switch that up to 60 frames a second before I take off. But that's the only recording setting that I normally change. The other thing worth mentioning is where you actually select the flight modes. Now they're going to be selected on the drone itself and not in the DJI Fly app. The app is mainly there for changing the settings for the recording, like your resolution or your frame rate. Now, if you are flying one of DJI's controllers, then you're also going to have manual camera controls, but that's going to be for a completely different video. Today, it's all about the flight modes directly on the drone itself. Now, before somebody asks about ND filters, my advice would be is not to rush out and buy a set. They are definitely useful in their place, especially on bright sunny days. But because the DJI Neo 2 controls the exposure automatically when using these flight modes, they're not as essential as they are when you're flying completely manual. So I'd rather spend a bit of time getting to know the drone first and then decide if you actually need them. Now, most sets will cost somewhere around £25 to £30, but I'd rather you spend that money once you're confident that they are genuinely going to improve your footage. And if this video has just saved you from buying a set, then obviously there's a buy me a coffee link down below. No pressure, it's just that it does help the channel out no end. So once I've found a location that I'm happy with, the one mode I normally start with is Dronie. And this is because it's quick, it's easy, and it's going to give me a lovely establishing shot of both me and the location. Now, I normally leave the distance to 10 meters, but if there's plenty of room or if the view really deserves it, I will increase that up to the 20 meter mark. And as for the height, I normally leave that as right, and that's simply because that's the look I prefer. Now, one thing I've noticed quite quickly was how much difference the starter position made. So I always try to stand with the best scenery behind me. And as the drone flies away, it's going to gradually show more and more of the landscape. And this creates a much stronger opening shot than having the scenery in front of you. I've also got into the habit of recording 2 or 3 dronies from slightly different positions. It's only going to add another minute to the flight, but quite often one reveal stands out from the others when I get home. And sometimes just moving a few meters completely changes the shot. Now, once I've got my first reveal, I usually want something from a completely different perspective, and that's where the rocket's going to come in. It does give you a lovely vertical reveal. And again, I normally leave this for around about 10 meters, but if the location is really open, like the Dronie, I'm going to increase that to 20 meters. Now, I also tend to leave the rotation off personally because I think that's a cleaner looking shot. Now, one mistake I made early on was checking around the drone, but forgetting to check above it, especially if I was near any trees, because anything overhanging, like a little branch, can be easy to miss. So by now, I've got 2 really solid reveal shots. But if I want something that keeps both me and the landscape in view for a little longer, then circle is going to be my next choice. And it is possibly one of my favourite quick shots. And this is because it's simple and it's reliable and it's nearly always there in the final cut. Now, when it comes to circle, again, I leave this round about 6 meters. And if I've got more room, I will tend to increase it out to 10 meters. I leave the height on flat, and that's simply, again, the look that I prefer. So the biggest thing I've learned to circle is where to position the drone before pressing start. Now, when I first started, I'd always put the drone directly in front of me. And the problem is that's where the orbit starts and that's where the orbit will finish. So when you edit the clip, you're often trimming away both ends. Now, these days, I nearly always start with the drone slightly off to one side or even behind me. And that means the nicest part of the orbit is going to be in the middle of the clip, which is usually the section I end up using. I nearly always record two circles as well. One at around about 6 meters and the other one at 10 meters. Now it's only going to take another 30 seconds, but it's surprising how different both of these can look and feel when you play them back. Sometimes the tighter shot works best, sometimes it's the wider one, but having both will give me far more flexibility when I'm editing. Now, if the location is really open, then I'll usually push things a little bit further before moving on. And this is where the Helix earns its place. And you really need to think of this as a Dronie. It's just got a little bit more drama. So instead of the drone simply flying backwards, it's going to circle you at the same time. And that creates a much bigger reveal of the location. Again, I'll normally leave this to about 10 meters, but if I've got lots of space, I will increase it up to 20. Now, the biggest lesson Helix taught me is that not every location is suitable. And it's all because of the climbing and the moving away at the same time. It is going to cover far more ground than you possibly realise. So things like trees, lampposts, buildings, they're all worth checking out before you start to make sure they're not going to cause any problems with the drone as it ascends and moves away. And one thing I've got into the habit of doing is recording both the Dronie and the Helix from exactly the same position. Again, it's only going to take 30 seconds, but when I get home, sometimes the Dronie works better, sometimes the Helix is going to win. But I'd much rather have both options waiting for me in the edit. Now, by this point, I've normally captured all the reveal shots that I need, but if I've still got plenty of room around me, I usually finish off with the Boomerang. And this, it's going to fly away from you, loops around, and then it's going to come back to the position from where it started. Now, it's a movement that's almost impossible to recreate by flying manually, which is why I still enjoy using it. But I only tend to use it in wide open spaces, things like a beach or a large field, somewhere where you are well away from trees. And the mistake I used to make when I first started was thinking I had enough room, and quite often I didn't. So now I always stop for a few seconds, picture the entire flight in my head, and if there's anything that's a little close, I do simply skip the flight itself. It's not worth taking the risk. And another habit I've developed is leaving Boomerang until the very end of the quick shots. By then, I've already walked around the area, I've checked for any obstacles, and I know exactly how much space I've got. And that makes the whole manoeuvre feel much more relaxed. It's not a mode that I use every time, but I will use it if the location suits it. And it's one of those clips that people usually ask me about afterwards. And because I've already captured the essential shots, I can simply enjoy watching the drone do its thing. Now, once I've finished all my quick shots, then I like to slow things down a little. And this is where the spotlight becomes really useful. Now, unlike the other mode, the drone isn't going to fly around any pre-programmed route. Now, once spotlight is doing its thing, I can concentrate then on the shot itself. Now, it may be that I want to film it just locked onto me, or it could be that I want to have it in a static position while I move in and out of the frame. But it is a brilliant stepping stone. So if you are starting out and you want to build more confidence and experience and start thinking about the shots, then using something like Spotlight is going to develop that as well. And it is probably one of the most underrated features of the DJI Neo 2. But once you start using it, you probably wonder why you didn't start using it sooner. So I'm going to stop for a moment and say, if you are a creator like me and you're looking to upgrade your workspace, then I've been using the FlexiSpot E7 Pro standing desk. And I have to say that the build quality has really impressed me. Now, just one of the things I like most is the amount of choice that's available. You've got multiple desktop sizes, different finishes and colours. So whether or not you're building a clean home office, a full creator setup or a studio workspace, then there's going to be something that's going to fit your space and style. So the FlexiSpot E7 Pro standing work desk also offers generous height range with programmable memory presets. So switching between sitting and standing just takes a single button press. Now the motors are smooth, quiet and feel incredibly solid even when the desk is loaded with monitors, drones, cameras and other equipment. And for content creators, this desk is particularly useful. Not only does it make editing and desk work more comfortable throughout the day, but it's also fantastic for presentations and filming. Being able to quickly adjust the desk height means that you can create different camera angles, shooting positions and presentation setups without constantly having to rearrange your studio. So whether or not you're working from home, editing videos, live streaming, or filming product reviews like I do, then the FlexiSpot E7 Pro Standard Desk does give you a premium workspace that's both practical and incredibly versatile. And if you would like to learn more, then I'm going to leave some links down in the description below. So by now, I've normally finished capturing everything I want for the location itself. I've got my reveal shots and I want to capture myself moving through it. And this is where the follow mode comes into its own. Out of all the flight modes on the DJI Neo 2, this is probably one I've used the most, whether I'm walking along a beach, if I'm following a coastal path, or if I'm heading out towards some sort of viewpoint. Follow is nearly always the first choice that I use for this. And normally I leave the distance to medium, and that gives me a nice balance between me and the drone and the scenery around me. And one thing I've quickly come to realise, it's not limited to one position. You can put the drone in front of you, behind you, or off to the side. So don't just leave it in the default position. Experiment with all of them. If I want the scenery behind me, I'll just position the drone in front. If I wanted to reveal where I'm walking, I'll move the drone to behind me. And if I want a more cinematic profile shot, then I'm going to move it off to one side. So you'll soon find yourself changing positions depending on the location. Now also height makes quite a big difference because most people will automatically choose low. I only use low if there's something close to the ground that I really want to include. Now other things I nearly always do is record the same shot with me walking from 3 different positions. Again, it's only going to add a minute or two to your shooting time, but when I get home, like the other shots, I've got a number of different angles to choose from in the final edit, and that can make the video feel a lot more polished. And finally, you don't have to keep walking. You can stop for a moment, maybe take in the view, look around, and those little pauses often end up being my favourite moments in the finished video. Now once I'm happy with my walking shots, then you've got cycling mode. I do tend to use this again quite a lot because I do enjoy mountain biking. So if I'm out on the trails, this is the one that I normally choose as opposed to the regular follow. So it is designed specifically for cycling and it tracks you from behind. So it means that you can concentrate on riding while the drone follows you along. And the biggest thing I've learned from this is to give the drone plenty of room to work. On quiet forest trails, on open fire roads or on wide sidle paths, it does work really well. So the more space you've got, the better, and the more confident the drone can be in tracking you. And because it's following from behind, I spend less time worrying about the camera and enjoying the ride more. Now if you do enjoy mountain biking like I do, it's a brilliant way of filming yourself without needing someone to ride alongside with you. So the last tracking mode is skiing. Now if you live somewhere like I do in Wales, there's not exactly an abundance of ski slopes. So it's not a mode I've had much opportunity to use. But it is designed for faster downhill sports where the drone needs to cope with much higher speeds than normal follow modes. So if you are skiing, snowboarding, that type of thing, it's definitely worth out trying when you're away. Although for me, it's nice to know it's there, but it's not something that I would use. Once I finish all the tracking shots, I'd normally stop for a minute, look around, and then ask myself one question. Is there anything in the scenery that would look good in slow motion? And then if the answer is yes, then this is when I switch to things like the highlight slow motion modes. And this is one of the new features and it really did genuinely surprise me. At first, I wasn't quite sure how often I would use it, but I've ended up using it far more than I thought I would. So now you've got 4 options. You've got pull back and down, dolly out, push in and up, and dolly in. Now, out of the 4 moves, I probably use pull back and down the most because it suits the type of footage that I'm doing and it reveals the scenery gradually without feeling too dramatic. Now, if I want something with a little more impact, I normally choose the dolly in. And the nice thing is it only takes a minute or two to capture all 4 options. And that's exactly what I tend to do. And then when I get home, I can decide which movement works the best. And quite often, it may not be the one that I did expect. Now, I have found that these shots work best when I'm creating some sort of movement, either walking towards the camera, taking the view in, or even things like throwing a handful of leaves into the air. And it's those little moments that look fantastic when they are slowed down. And they do help make the footage feel much more cinematic. And because it does only take a few months to do all 4 options, I nearly always do. And it gives me far more creative choices when I'm editing. So by now, I've normally got all the footage that I've come for. So this is the point I usually experiment a little bit more. And that's where the dolly zoom comes in. Now, it's probably the most dramatic looking flight mode there is on the DJI Neo 2, and it's something that gets a lot of people asking, how do you do that? But it's not a mode that I use on every flight, and it's not because it doesn't work, it just doesn't really suit the type of style that I'm normally trying to create. Another thing worth remembering is that it does use the digital zoom, so the image quality isn't going to be as good as on some of the other flight modes. Now, once I finish filming, I will normally grab a few photos before packing everything away. And this is where the SelfieShot comes in. And one of the features I really like is that you can choose between 1 and 5 sets of 3 photos. And that gives you plenty of images to choose from afterwards. So this means if someone blinks or looks away or the timing isn't quite right, you've usually got another photo that's much better for you to use in whatever edit you're doing. Now, when all that's done, right at the very end of the flight, and if I've got enough battery left, there is one shot that I always think about taking, and that's going to be master shots. Now, I don't tend to use this every time I fly, but it is nice sometimes just let the drone do everything. So you can select your 10 or 20 meters distance, click start, and then the drone is going to fly off and take a series of quick shots, and then it's automatically going to combine them into a short cinematic sequence which you can include in your footage if you really need to. So instead of concentrating on individual shots, you get to enjoy the whole location from a completely different perspective. So before you head off, there are 3 things I'd like to leave you with. First of all, don't feel like you need to master every flight mode in one weekend. Start with the ones you think you're generally going to use. For me, that would be Dronie, circle and follow modes. And then once they become second nature, the other ones will start to feel a lot more natural. Secondly, don't be afraid to experiment. Some of my favourite shots have been captured completely by accident with different heights, different distances and different directions. So don't worry if something doesn't work at first. Just try it again and it may work the second or even the third time. It's all part of the learning curve. And then finally, just remember that these are just tools. They're there to tell a story. So a beautiful location, good light and a little bit of creativity will always make more of a difference than simply selecting a different flight mode. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate you spending the time watching the video. If you have enjoyed it, if you could give it a like. If you'd like to see more on the DJI Neo 2 with tips, tutorials and real world flying videos, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on the next one. If you'd like to support the channel and not buy ND filters, there's also that link for Buy Me a Coffee below. And as always, everything you've seen in the video is just based on my own experience. I'm not sponsored by DJI. No one's told me what to say. These are simply the settings that I use on the flight modes and what works the best for me. So it would be nice to hear from you about which flight modes you're using, and if there's any tips you've got from today's video, let me know. Or if you have any other tips you'd like to share with other subscribers, also let them know in the comments below. I'll do my best to reply to as many as I can. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again in the next video.